The last transmission from the 9th Fleet was 23 days ago. It wasn't a scream, not even a garbled mayday. It was worse. Just a short clipped voice from Admiral Crane, Steele, saying, "We are entering the Concord Gate. Signal will resume on the other side." And then nothing, no follow-up, no telemetry, no ship beacons. The Concord Gate stayed cold on Earth. They pretended it was a technical delay. That's what the government feeds you when the truth smells like blood, but men like me, we've seen that silence before. It's not a delay, it's the kind of silence that settles over a battlefield when everyone's already dead. The 9th wasn't some green task force. They were the hammer in Earth's hand. 12 dreadnoughts, 82 destroyers, 2 carrier groups, men and women who'd fought through the siege of Titan and lived to drink about it, for them to just vanish. That's not a skirmish, that's annihilation. I've been out for 3 years, working freight runs between Luna and the Belt. I'd done my time in fleet intelligence back when we were still convincing the colonies we were one happy family, but they still knew where to find me. A knock at my hatch, 2 men in plain black coats, and suddenly I'm sitting in a sealed transport on my way to orbital command. Director Havel didn't waste time. She slid a tablet across the desk. Images of the Concord Gate from a probe's recon pass. You didn't need to be an analyst to see the truth. The gate was scorched, pitted with fragments of hull plating frozen in the void around it. But what made my stomach not wasn't the wreckage, it was the scorch pattern. This wasn't a battle. This was execution fire, precise, surgical, meant to erase. The 9th Fleet ignored no orders, Havel said quietly. They followed protocol. They crossed into Concord space to enforce the Council's ultimatum. This is what they got. I knew what she was leading me to. Someone wanted me back in the game. Someone wanted the truth dragged out from wherever the hell the Concord hit it. But here's the thing, the ultimatum wasn't just some diplomatic stunt. It was a line in the sand drawn by a planet that had already been bleeding for too long. We'd given the conquered worlds a choice: seize their expansion into Saul's protectorate zones or face full military reprisal. We gave them 30 days to decide. They gave us silence, and now apparently they'd given us a graveyard. Havel leaned in, her voice dropping to something only I could hear, like the walls themselves might be listening. We've intercepted chatter from conquered channels. They don't think the 9th was lost. They think we're hiding it. Why would we hide losing our biggest fleet? I asked. She gave me that cold, bureaucratic half smile. Because if word got out that the Concord erased our most powerful group in a single move, the entire outer sphere would panic. The colonies would riot, and the Council, well, the Council would have to do something drastic. Something drastic. I'd heard that phrase before. It usually meant war, the kind you don't come back from. Havel slid a small black case toward me. You're going through the gate, not as fleet, not as official anything. You find what's left of the 9th, or you bring back proof there's nothing left to find. I looked at the case. It was heavy. I already knew what was inside. A fleet issue sidearm, encrypted data cores, probably a false identity packet. But what weighed more than the case was the question she didn't ask out loud. If I did find the 9th, would I even recognize what was left of them? I took the case, and with it the job, because in my gut I already knew the truth. Earth's Final ultimatum wasn't ignored, it was answered. The Concord had just made. Sure, we wouldn't like the reply, but I still had to hear it for myself. And I had no idea that once I stepped through that gate, I'd wish to God I'd stayed on my rusted freighter, moving crates of ore and pretending I'd forgotten how to kill. The ship they gave me wasn't a warship. That was the point. She was an old survey vessel, the Mistral, stripped down and patched over so many times she looked like she'd been rescued from a scrapyard. 2 crew quarters, 1 main deck, a jump course so underpowered it wheezed every time you put it under strain. Fleet intelligence loves ships like that, small enough to slip through without a radar wake, ugly enough that no one bothers to look twice. But what made her special wasn't visible. Tucked under her hull was a stealth lattice, the kind they only issue to Black Ops recon boats. If you didn't know exactly where to look, the Mistral could park 10 clicks off your bow and you'd swear she wasn't there. I didn't get to pick my crew. Havel handed me a roster, 3 names, no faces, and a note that they'd been briefed. That's intelligence speak for. They know enough to do the job, but not enough to survive a debriefing if it goes south. First was Juno Marks, a pilot who'd been dishonorably discharged after the Scathy run. She'd flown blockade runners through minefields when most pilots were still learning to keep their hands steady on a stick. Second was Draven Hall, a tech specialist with more time in fleet brig cells than on payroll, good with systems, bad with authority. Last was Garrick Vane, gunner without a gun, ex-Marine who'd lost his squad during the siege of Titan and never quite crawled back out of that hole. When I met them in the docking bay, they didn't look like the kind of crew you'd trust to keep you alive, but sometimes that's exactly the kind you need. People with nothing left to lose tend to hold the line longer. We left Luna under the cover of a scheduled ore shipment to Callisto. Once we cleared Jupiter's orbit, Juno killed our transponder and the Mistral became a ghost. No comms, no beacon, just an empty shadow sliding toward the Concord gate. The gate itself floated in the dark between stars, like a wound in space. 2 massive crescents of alloy and stone, each the size of a small moon, curving toward each other until they almost touched. In the middle was the shimmer, the event horizon of the wormhole, rippling like oil under starlight. We approached slow. Even at a distance, you could see the scars from whatever had hit it. The crescent were blackened, pitted, and one whole section of the inner ring was gone, ripped away clean, like something had carved it out with a blade. Draven leaned over the sensor console. That's precision fire, railgun high yield, not the Concord style. They don't need rail guns, Juno said. They've got beam arrays that make rail slugs look like pebbles. Then who the hell? Draven started, but I cut him off. Doesn't matter who. It matters if the 9th made it through. Before it happened, Garrick had been silent the whole approach, just watching the shimmer. Now he spoke, his voice low and flat. You ever think maybe they didn't want to make it through? We didn't answer that because we all had. The Mistral slid closer, our stealth latties swallowing most of our emissions. I ran the old docking sequence from Fleet Archives. If the Concord's on defense systems were still online, it might convince them we were friendlies. But the gate didn't respond. No pings, no scans, just the cold shimmer waiting. We crossed the event horizon and the Universe went inside out, a wormhole. Jump isn't like FTL. FTL you feel a lurch in your gut, a tightening in your skull, the subtle taste of copper on your tongue. A gate jump is worse. It feels like something is peeling you off your bones, folding you into a shape you weren't meant to fit, and then shoving you back together again. When the Mistral shuddered into real space, we were in conquered territory. The first thing I noticed was the debris, not scattered, not drifting. Arranged, hulks of ships both conquered and human, floated in patterns. Some were stacked in towers, others stretched in long lines like walls. It wasn't random, this was deliberate. Jesus, Juno breathed, it's a graveyard. No, Garrick said, eyes narrowing. It's a warning. He was right. We slid past a wrecked dreadnought, human make, fleet markings burned away. The hull was split clean down the center like a surgeon had done it. No blast scoring, no shrapnel, just opened. Draven ran scans. No power signatures, no transponders. If there's wreckage from the 9th, it's cold. Keep looking, I said. We threaded deeper into the field. The Conqueror doesn't leave trophies like this. They're efficient, they destroy, they salvage. They move on. This was different. Like someone wanted these ships here, rotting in the void where anyone could see. An hour in we found it, the Vanguard flagship of the 9th Fleet. Her spine was broken, the command tower torn away, half her hull was gone, the rest drifting in 2 jagged pieces held together by nothing but memory. I'd stood on that bridge once years back, drinking Crane's bitter coffee while we argued over deployment maps. Seeing her like this was like walking into a room and finding an old friend's body on the floor. Juno slowed the Mistral to a crawl, letting us drift alongside the wreck. No life signs, no emergency beacons. Boarding, Garrick asked. Boarding, I confirmed. We suited up, fleet EVVA suits, reinforced plating, sealed oxygen mag, boots that could hold you on a hull in a storm. The Mistral matched drift with the Vanguard, and we crossed the gap. The airlock was dead. We burned through the hatch and stepped inside. The corridors were dark, silent. Our helmet lamps cut through the dust, floating in Zerog. Except it wasn't dust, it was ash. No bodies, not one, not a scrap of uniform or bone, just ash and the occasional melted piece of personal gear, dog tags fused into slag, a sidearm warped into useless metal. Draven's voice cracked over comms. What the hell could do this? No blast damage, no atmosphere burn-off. Not what Garrick said. Who we reached the bridge. The forward view screen was gone, ripped out. The consoles were slagged, the chairs half-melted, and in the center of the floor, carved deep into the plating, was a symbol. Not conquered. A circle of jagged lines intersected by a single slash. Juno leaned over it, scanning. No matches in fleet or conquered databases. But I've seen something close in Outer Rim. Pirate clan's symbol for taken. Garrick straightened. Taken, taken. Where? No one answered, because the silence pressing in on us didn't feel like death. It felt like something was still listening. Back on the Mistral, we dumped every scan, every image into the data core. Havel would want proof, but I didn't care about proof anymore. I wanted to know who had done this and why. They'd left the Vanguard floating here like bait. We were about to power up when our proximity alarm shrieked. Something was moving through the wreck field. Juno killed our running lights and swung us into the shadow of a broken, conquered frigate. We watched as a ship emerged, sleek, black, and wrong. No visible engines, no seams in the hull, just a smooth shape gliding through space like it didn't need propulsion. It stopped by the Vanguard. No docking, no boarding, just waiting. Then our comms crackled, not an open broadcast, not fleet frequency, direct, encrypted, aimed at us, a voice calm and deep. Male, you shouldn't be here. Juno's knuckles went white on the controls. They can see us. The voice came again. Leave now or you'll join them. And just like that, the black ship turned and slid back into the wreck field, vanishing without a trace. No scan picked it up, no drive signature, nothing. We sat there in silence, listening to our own breathing in our helmets. I've seen fear before in war, in backroom interrogations, in the eyes of men who know they're seconds from dying. But what I saw in my crew's eyes then wasn't fear of dying, it was fear of being erased. I keyed the navigation. We're not going home, not yet. Garrick stared at me. You think chasing that thing is a good idea? No, I said, I think it's the only idea. Because whatever had taken the Ninth Fleet wasn't conquered. And if it wasn't conquered, then Earth's final ultimatum hadn't just been ignored, it had been intercepted. And somewhere out there past the wrecks and the silence, someone was holding the answers, and maybe, just maybe, the missing men of the Ninth. The question was, how far would we have to go to find them before they decided to take us to? We tailed the black ship for 8 hours, or at least we tried to. It didn't move. Like a ship, one moment it would be gliding ahead, the next it would shimmer, distort, and reappear, kill 'em off its own heading, as if the void itself had skipped. Our stealth lattice kept us hidden from standard detection. But I had no idea if that thing even used standard sensors. For all I knew, it could smell the heat from our bodies. Juno's hands were steady on the controls, but her jaw was tight. It's not burning any fuel, not even mass displacement from an inertial drive, it's just moving. Draven muttered from his console, then, it's not running on physics, we understand. The wreck field thinned, giving way to open space. The black ship cut a sharp angle toward a starless patch in the distance, a void so absolute it seemed to eat the starlight around it. My gut told me what it was before the sensors confirmed it. A second gate, but this one wasn't like the conquered gate. The crescent were different, organic curves like bone, and the shimmer between them wasn't silver. Like oil, it was black, not just dark, but the kind of black that made you feel like it was looking back at you. The black ship didn't slow. It slipped through and was gone. Juno looked at me. We following it? I hesitated. Fleet training teaches you to never walk blind into an enemy's door, but fleet training also assumes you're facing an enemy. You know, this was something else. Take us in, I said. The Mistral slid toward the black gate. No defense pings, no scans, no comms, just silence. Crossing the event horizon was different. This time, it wasn't the gut lurch of a normal gate jump. It was cold, not in my suit, not in my skin, inside my thoughts, like someone had reached in and turned down the temperature on my mind. When the darkness spat us out, we were somewhere no star charts had ever named. The space here was thick. I don't mean physically. I mean it felt heavy, like every movement was pushing against something unseen. Around us floated more wrecks, but these weren't human or conquered. The designs were alien shapes and angles that made your eyes want to slide off them. Some look centuries old, others like they'd been destroyed yesterday, and in the middle of it all was a structure, if you could even call it that. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and it rotated slowly, but not in any orbit I could chart. It was built or grown from black material like the ship we'd followed, with spires jutting out in every direction. "That's not a station," Draven whispered. "It's a nest." Juno kept us drifting in the shadow of a broken alien cruiser. "Contact 3 ships. Same design as the black one, moving in patrol pattern." Garrick checked the weapons panel, even though I'd told him we weren't firing unless we wanted to die fast. "What the hell are they guarding?" I was wondering the same thing. Then my sensors caught something. Faint beacon, human frequency buried deep inside the structure. It was weak, flickering, but it was ours. "The 9th," I said, "or what's left of them." Juno didn't ask if we were going in. She just started plotting the drift path. It would take us 2 hours to close without breaking stealth, and even then we'd have to latch to the outer hull and board on foot. Halfway in, Garrick broke the silence. "You ever think this isn't a rescue?" I glanced at him. "What do you mean?" "They didn't destroy the Vanguard. They didn't erase her from the field. They left her there for someone to find. Same with that beacon. We're not chasing them, they're pulling us in." I didn't answer because he wasn't wrong. And the worst part, I was still going in. When we finally reached the outer hull of the black structure, it was like standing next to a mountain made of obsidian. Our mag boots barely stuck, almost like the material resisted being touched. We burned a small opening with a thermal cutter, and the moment it gave way, I knew we weren't in a ship or a station. We were inside something alive. The walls pulsed faintly, a slow rhythm like breathing. The air, yes, there was air, was cold and tasted metallic. Every sound we made came back as a whisper, delayed by a fraction of a second. Draven kept scanning, but his instruments were useless. There's no data, no heat signatures, no M fields. It's like the place doesn't exist. But the beacon was stronger now. We followed it through twisting corridors that didn't seem to match the exterior shape, like the place was rearranging itself as we moved. Finally, we reached a chamber. It was vast, and in the center hung a cage of black material. Inside, Crane, Admiral Crane. He was floating in Zerog, eyes closed. Suit gone, he was pale but breathing. Around him, other figures, fleet uniforms, conquered armor, alien bodies I didn't recognize, all suspended in the same black lattice. None of them moved. Garrick took a step forward. We pull him out now. The moment his boot hit the floor, the walls shifted. Shapes emerged from the darkness, humanoid but wrong. Limbs too long, faces hidden under black plating, movements smooth like liquid. One of them spoke, though I couldn't see a mouth. "You have crossed the line between wars." The voice wasn't in my ears, it was inside my head. "You came seeking the lost," it continued. "You will leave as one of them," and in that instant I understood something. This wasn't just an enemy, this was a collector. The 9th Fleet hadn't been destroyed, they'd been taken. And now we were part of the collection. The moment that voice crawled into my head, every instinct screamed, run. But running wasn't an option. The Corridor we'd come through was gone, sealed over with smooth black walls like it had never been there. The shapes moved closer. Their steps made no sound, but I felt the vibrations through the floor, deep and steady, like the thump of a heartbeat. Garrick raised his rifle. "Don't," I said sharply. He didn't load it, but he stopped aiming. I could see it in his eyes. Every Marine instinct told him to put rounds into the nearest threat, but even he understood that bullets here would be about as effective as spitting in a hurricane. The nearest figure tilted its head at me. No eyes, no face, but I felt its attention, a heavy pressure behind my forehead. "You speak," it said in that same mind voice. "You command." I glanced at my crew. I lead. It stepped closer, close enough that I could see the surface of its armor. Wasn't armor at all, it was part of its flesh. Black, smooth but shifting, slightly like it was breathing through its skin. "You are from the world that sends ultimatums," it said. My stomach tightened. "We gave one," you answered. The shape didn't move for a long moment. "Then we did not answer you. We removed those who would end the game. Too soon." "Game?" Juno's voice cracked over comms. The thing ignored her. "Your kind and the ones you call conquered are players. We are the board you fight across our space, thinking at yours, but every war, every fleet, every kill feeds us." Garrick muttered, "What the hell are you? Parasites?" The voice in my head pulsed harder, colder. "Not parasites, curators. The wars keep the strong from breeding. Complacency. The dead feed the living. The captured feed us." I took a slow breath, forcing myself to keep my voice level. "So you took the Ninth Fleet to keep the war going, to keep it balanced?" It corrected. "If your kind crushed the conquered, the game would end. If the conquered crushed you, it would end. We cannot allow the board to go empty." My mind was spinning. This wasn't about politics, resources, or borders. It was control, a third power playing God with entire civilizations just to keep their little experiment going. "Release them," I said. The figure's head tilted again, and for the first time I felt something like amusement in my mind. "They are part of the balance now. Some will be returned, some will be reshaped." "Reshaped how?" Draven asked, though he probably didn't want the answer. The figure's thoughts pressed harder, enough to make my vision swim, and then I saw, not with my eyes but in my head, images of soldiers from a dozen species, stripped of memory, remade into something else, their bodies bent into those black forms, their faces erased. I snapped out of it, stumbling back a step. "They turned them into more of them." Garrick's hands clenched into fists. "Like hell they're doing that to Crane." The figure stepped aside, and for a moment I thought it was letting us go. But then the black cage in the center of the chamber began to shift. The lattice pulled apart like strands of silk, and Crane's body floated forward. Only it wasn't Crane anymore. His skin was pale but threaded with black veins, pulsing faintly. His eyes open, pure black, no whites, no iris, and when his mouth moved, the voice that came out wasn't his. "This one is already chosen," the figure said. "You may carry him home if you can bear what he becomes." I felt the trap closing. If we refused, we'd never see Crane again. If we accepted, we were taking a Trojan horse straight back to Earth. Juno whispered over comms, "We grab him and run right now." "Run to where?" Draven hissed. "You saw what's outside. 3 of their ships and a gate we don't control." Garrick didn't care. He launched Forward, pushing off and Zerog toward. Crane, the figures didn't move to stop him, they just watched. We latched Crane to Garrick's harness and moved back toward where the corridor had been. The wall there shivered and suddenly the way was open again. They're letting us go, Juno said, almost disbelieving. No, I said, they're sending us. We moved fast, retracing our path through the twisting corridors. Every turn felt wrong, like we'd just been here, but it looked slightly different. By the time we reached the breach we'd cut to get in, my sense of direction was gone. Back on the Mistral, we secured Crane in the medbay. His vitals were steady, too steady, no fluctuation in heart rate, no variance in breathing, like a machine keeping time. Do we sedate him? Draven asked. No. I said, we don't touch him until we're out of here. Juno fired up the engines, keeping us under stealth as we drifted away from the black structure. The 3 patrol ships didn't move to intercept. They didn't even acknowledge us. It was like they'd already stopped thinking about us. When we hit the black gate, I half expected it to close, to trap us here forever, but it didn't. We crossed back into conquered space without a ripple. The wreck field looked almost normal now, if you ignored the fact that normal meant a floating graveyard of every major power in the region, plotting course for the conquered gate. Juno said, not yet. I told her, we can't take Crane straight to Earth. Why not? Garrick asked sharply. That's exactly what Havel sent us for. I looked at him, then at Crane's still black-eyed face on the medbay feed. Because whatever's in him, it's not Crane anymore, and if we bring him home, we might just be handing those things away in. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then Juno spoke, her voice low. So what do we do? The truth was, I didn't know. All I knew was this: Earth's final ultimatum wasn't ignored, it was laughed at. And now we weren't just in a war with the conquered, we were pawns in a game we didn't even know we were playing. And somewhere deep in my gut, I knew the real war hadn't even started yet. We didn't sleep. No one said it out loud, but the reason was obvious. Crane, he was strapped to the medbay cot, restraints locked at wrists and ankles, a pulse monitor wired into him. The readings hadn't changed once. Heart rate 46, breathing steady, temperature 2 degrees lower than human normal. Not enough to kill him, just enough to remind us that whatever was inside him didn't need his body working the way it used to. I stood in the doorway watching him, and for a second I thought his eyes were closed. Then they snapped open, pure black, and locked on me. You're taking me home, he said. It was his voice, but not his tone. Crane had always had gravel in his speech, that worn-out commander's rumble. This was smooth, perfect, like a recording made of something pretending to be him. No, I said flatly, we're not. He didn't blink. You can't fight inevitability. I stepped into the room. I can delay it, and that's enough. A faint smile ghosted across his lips. We chose you for a reason. That stopped me cold. You what? Your war, your fleet, your ultimatums. They're loud, but they're shallow. You. His gaze drifted over me like I was being weighed and measured. You adapt. That makes you dangerous. More dangerous than your council realizes. I leaned on the cot close enough to smell the faint metallic tang on his breath. You made a mistake taking me seriously. No, he said softly. We made an investment. Before I could answer, Draven's voice cut over the comms from the cockpit. We've got company. I left the medbay and joined him. Juno was already throttling down, eyes on the radar. 3 blips, small, fast, coming in from the far edge of the wreck field. Conquered, I asked, not broadcasting. Conquered codes, Juno said, but they're running conquered patterns, could be pirates with stolen tech. Garrett strapped himself into the weapons station. If they're pirates, they're about to regret no firing unless they shoot first, I ordered. The blips closed. Vast. Too fast. I knew that speed, fleet. Interceptors could do it, conquered. Frigates could too, pirates not a chance. Then the comm pinged on an open channel. A woman's voice clipped in. Sharp, unidentified vessel, power down. And prepare for boarding. This sector is under conquered authority. Juno muttered, great, we survive alien collectors just to get picked apart by the conquered. Cut the main drive, I said, make us look harmless. Conquered ships came into view, sleek silver-gray hulls angled for speed. No visible weapons ports, but I knew what they had under the plating. A boarding skiff detached from the lead ship and latched onto our airlock with a magnetic clamp. The hiss of pressurization followed, then the clang of boots on deck. 4 conquered soldiers stepped in, rifles up. Their armor was spotless, their movements precise. The woman in front wasn't a grunt, she had an officer's poise and a stare that could cut through whole plating. I'm Commander Lurin, she said. State your purpose in conquered space. Survey run. I lied without hesitation. Picked up wreckage near the gate. Came to investigate. Her eyes flicked to the still active stealth laddie's controls. Survey vessels don't run stealth. We don't like being seen by pirates. She didn't look convinced. We're scanning your ship. She turned to one of her soldiers who started toward the medbay. Stop. My voice came out sharper than I intended. You don't want to go in there. Her head tilted slightly. Why not? Because what's in there isn't your problem yet. And if you open that door without knowing what you're dealing with, it'll become your problem. That got her attention. She gestured and the soldier froze mid-step. Explain. I weighed my options. Lying would get us searched. Telling the truth might get us spaced. Finally, I said, we found a survivor from the 9th Fleet. That made her blink just once. Impossible. The 9th Fleet was lost till she cut herself off to conquer engagement. I almost laughed. That's the official line. Number, they weren't lost to you, and you know it. Her jaw tightened. You will hand over the survivor? No, I said. Simply. The silence stretched between us. Then she said, if you think you can stop us, you're mistaken. I don't need to stop you, I said. I just need to let you take him, and then you can explain to your superiors why one of your ships went dark 3 hours later, crew and all. Her eyes searched mine, and I could see it, the flicker of doubt, the knowledge that I wasn't bluffing. She'd heard the stories, maybe even seen it happen. Ships gone without a trace, no distress calls, no wreckage. Finally, she said, you leave conquered space immediately. If I see your ship again, I won't ask questions. Deal? She turned on her heel, and her soldiers followed. 2 minutes later, the conquered ships peeled off, leaving us alone. Juno exhaled. They bought it. No, I said, they just didn't want to risk finding out. Garrett glanced at me. We can't keep running forever. I know. I looked back toward the medbay where Crane lay, perfectly still, eyes closed again. Which means we need to pick where we make our stand. The problem was I didn't know if that stand would be against the conquered, the curators, or our own damn government, maybe all three, and if Crane was telling the truth about me being an investment, then they were already betting I'd play exactly the way they wanted. The question now was whether I could turn the board on them. Before the game swallowed us whole, we broke clear of conquered space without further interference, but the tension in the Mistral didn't ease. Juno kept glancing at the sensors like she expected another set of blips to appear any second. Garrick stayed strapped into the weapons chair even after we hit deep space. Draven barely left the medbay, though I suspected it wasn't out of concern for Crane. More the opposite. 3 days passed. Crane didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't sleep. The monitor stayed the same. Perfect mechanical vitals. Once I caught Draven standing over him with a scanner, frowning. Anything? I asked. He shook his head. No implants, no trackers, no devices. If there's tech in him, it's not tech. We understand. That wasn't reassuring. By the 4th day, I knew we couldn't just keep drifting. Havel would be expecting us back, but I wasn't ready to walk into orbital command carrying a man-shaped weapon I didn't understand. So I set a course for a dead zone, a patch of space between colony routes where an abandoned mining station floated in slow orbit around a nameless rock. The station was a relic from before the first expansion. Half its modules sealed off, the other half barely holding atmosphere. But it had one thing we needed: isolation. We docked without incident. The air inside was stale, tinged with rust and oil. Our boots clanged on grating that hadn't felt human steps in years. This place gives me the creeps, Juno muttered. That's the point, I said. Nobody's going to stumble in here. We set up in a central hub, 4 corridors branching out, each ending a sealed bulkhead. The power grid hummed weakly, enough for lights and basic systems. Crane was brought in under heavy restraint, his cot lashed to the deck. Garrick stood over him like a guard dog, rifle in hand. Now what? Draven asked. Now, I said. We find out what's inside him. That was easier said than done. Every standard scan we ran came back clean. No anomalies beyond the black pigmentation in his eyes and the vein-like markings under his skin. But when Draven tried a deep neural map, the system crashed twice. It's like something fried the interface, he said, staring at the dead console. I've never seen that happen. Crane's voice cut through the room. You won't find it by looking. I turned to him. Then where should I be looking? Inside yourself, he said. I almost laughed. Not in the mood for riddles. It's not a riddle, he replied. They chose you because you can hear them when the time comes. Garrick leaned forward. Hear who? Crane's eyes fixed on me. The curators. The word slid into my mind like ice water. I remembered the black figure in the chamber, the pressure in my head when it spoke. You're saying they're talking to me now? I asked. Not yet, Crane said, but soon. And when they do, you'll understand the balance. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. If they're using you to get to me, they made a mistake. I'm not playing their game. His lips curved into that faint, wrong smile again. Everyone plays. Some just don't realize it. That night, if you could call it night in a place with no windows, I dreamed I was standing in the black chamber again, but this time the cages stretched out endlessly, each holding soldiers Civilians' whole crews, the black figures moved between them, not hurried, not slow, just inevitable. One of them stopped in front of me. You can free them, it said. How, I asked. By replacing them. I woke with my fists clenched so tight. My palms hurt. We spent another 2 days in the station running tests, getting nowhere. Then on the 3rd day, the sensors picked up movement, a single ship, inbound at low speed, not conquered, not fleet pirates. Looks like a scavenger run, Juno said. From the console, old haulers stripped weapons, but if they see us, they'll call friends. Garrick finished. We had 2 choices. Power up and run, risking exposure, or stay dark and hope they pass by without boarding. They didn't pass by. The docking alarm sounded. Someone was cutting into the outer hatch. Positions, I ordered. We split, Garrick covering the main entrance, Juno and Draven taking flanking positions behind storage crates. I stayed near Crane's sidearm. Drawn, the hatch blew inward with a clang and 3 men stepped through. Weapons out, their armor was mismatched, their faces half hidden under helmets. This place is ours now, the lead one said, and everything in it. Turn around, Garrick said evenly. Walk away. The pirate laughed. Or what, Yule? He didn't finish. Crane was suddenly standing, restraints shredded, caught, overturned. One moment he was lying there, the next he was in front of the lead pirate, his hand closed around the man's throat. The pirate's helmet visor shattered, and he convulsed, choking. Black veins spread from Crane's fingers into the man's skin. The second pirate fired, but the round didn't even slow Crane down. He turned his head, eyes like voids, and the shooter froze, dropping his weapon and clawing at his own helmet as if something inside was burning him alive. The third man ran, smart choice. When it was over, the first 2 pirates were on the floor, their faces drained of color, their eyes as black as Crane's. They were breathing but not moving. Crane turned to me. They're mine now. My hand tightened on my sidearm. Get back in the restraints. He tilted his head. You still think you're in control? I'm still holding the gun, I said. He smiled. For now, the 2 pirates lay on the deck like discarded tools, breathing but wrong. Their chests rose and fell too slowly, their muscles slack, their eyes still black as deep space. Every instinct told me they weren't unconscious. They were listening, just not to us. Garrick moved towards them, rifle ready. Want me to put them down? No, I said. If they're connected to him, killing them might just tell whatever's pulling the strings exactly where we are. Crane stood a few meters away, calm as if nothing had happened. His hands hung loose at his sides, but I couldn't stop picturing them crushing the pirate's helmet like it was paper. Restraints, I told him. You saw what I did, he replied. You think those straps will matter? They'll matter to me. For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then, with that faint mocking smile, he sat back down on the cart. If it keeps you comfortable. Draven secured him, this time doubling the bindings and welding the buckles shut. Crane didn't resist. That was worse than if he had. We dragged the 2 pirates into a sealed storage bay and locked the hatch. The third one, the runner, was probably already screaming our coordinates to anyone who'd listen, which meant we had a new problem. We couldn't stay here. Juno was already in the cockpit by the time I joined her. We've got to burn out of here before a bigger crew shows up. I give it 6 hours before someone comes. Sniffing around, plot us a course, I said. To where, she asked. That was the question. We couldn't take Crane to Earth, couldn't hand him to the Concord, couldn't leave him floating in deep space without knowing if that would kill him or just let him drift until someone else picked him up. Outer Rim, I said finally. There's a listening post on Soren's Reach, off the charts. Not Fleet, not Concord. If anyone can help us figure out what's inside him, it's them. Juno glanced at me. The Reach is a black hole for secrets. You go there, you don't come back the same. I thought about Crane's smile. We're already not coming back the same. We undocked within the hour. The Mistral's engines groaned as we left the dead station behind. No sign of pursuit yet, but my gut told me that wouldn't last. For the first day of travel, Crane was silent. He didn't sleep, didn't ask questions, didn't even react when we entered FTL. The silence pressed on the crew. Juno stopped humming to herself at the controls. Draven kept checking the medbay feed like he expected Crane to vanish. Garrick barely spoke at all, except when I caught him muttering to himself in the corridor. On the second day, I found Garrick in the galley, staring at a mug of cold coffee. You're jumpier than usual, I said. He didn't look at me. I heard him. That made me pause. Crane. Number, not with my ears. His voice was low, almost ashamed. In my head, like that thing back in the black station just for a second told me I didn't have to be afraid anymore. And were you? He looked up then, and I didn't like what I saw in his eyes. Not fear, something closer to temptation. For that second, Number, I leaned on the table. You hear him again, you tell me. Immediately. He nodded, but it didn't feel like a promise. By the time we reached Soren's Reach, I'd stopped sleeping more than an hour at a time. The station appeared out of the void like a jagged knife, half asteroid, half construction, with spires of metal stabbing out at impossible angles. No running lights, no transponder. You either knew where it was or you never found it. Juno threaded us into one of the docking bays, a narrow slot that barely fit the Mistral. The bay doors closed behind us, sealing us in shadow. Then a single spotlight clicked on, illuminating a tall figure in a worn coat. The man didn't move until we stepped out of the airlock. Then his voice, growly and amused, echoed in the bay. Last time a fleet ship docked here, they tried to kill me. Let's hope you're better company. I'm not fleet, I said. Not anymore. He eyed me, then the rest of the crew, his gaze lingering on the medbay stretcher we brought out. Crane still strapped down. That's a problem, he said. You don't even know what he is, I replied. I don't have to. I can smell the trouble. This isn't the kind you can smell, I said. He studied me for a moment, then jerked his head toward a dark corridor. Follow me. The inside of Soren's Reach felt like a warren, narrow tunnels twisting between chambers of mismatched tech. Old fleet terminals sat next to Concord comms gear, all patched together with cabling that looked older than I was. The air smelled of ozone and hot metal. He led us to a chamber lit by a single ring of blue light overhead. Put him there, he said, nodding to a slab in the center. Draven and Garrick set Crane down, still restrained. The man moved around him, slowly pulling a set of goggles down over his eyes. What's inside him isn't tech, he murmured after a moment. It's older. Older than what? I asked. Older than The war older than the fleet, older than either of us has words for. He looked at me, and it's not inside him, it's around him. I frowned. Explain. He's not infected, he's connected like a node in a network, that thing you call a curator. It's not controlling him the way you'd control a drone. It's linked to him, and through him it's linked to you. My stomach turned cold. You mean it can hear us right now, not words, thoughts, echoes, shapes, but if you keep him close long enough, it'll find a way to make you hear it too. That's already happened, Garrick muttered from the corner. The man's head snapped toward him. Then you've got less time than I thought. Crane's voice slid into the room, calm and quiet. He's right, time is short. The man stepped back. Whatever you brought here, you need to get it off my station now. I looked at Crane. He was watching me, unblinking, waiting for me to make the move. We leave him, the man said. Take your ship, get as far as you can, and pray it's enough. But I knew it wouldn't be, because if the curators had chosen me for something, leaving Crane here wouldn't cut the connection. If anything, it might make them come looking, and I had the sinking feeling they wouldn't bother knocking. Next time, the old man's words hung in the air like the stink of ozone in a dead reactor. Leave Crane. Run, pray. It would have been the smart move, the kind of choice fleet training drills into you. Minimize risk, cut your losses, live to fight another day. But I'd seen enough in my time to know that running doesn't buy you safety, it just buys the thing chasing you more time to catch up. No, I said finally. The man's head tilted, the blue glow from the ring light catching in his goggles. No, we don't leave him here, I said, because this isn't about crying anymore. It's about whatever's behind him, and if we dump him and bolt, they'll still find us, or worse, they'll find Earth. You think you can fight it? His voice carried no mockery, just a bone-deep certainty. I've seen entire colonies disappear because someone thought they could fight it. I don't think I can fight it, I said. I think I can break the board they're playing on. That got a flicker of something in his expression, maybe curiosity, maybe pity. Crane spoke from the slab. His voice is calm, as if we were discussing weather patterns. You can't break the board. You are the board, and we already know how the game ends. I stepped closer. Then tell me. He smiled, that faint wrong smile again. You win, but it won't matter. That landed harder than I wanted it to. Before I could answer, the station's lights flickered. A deep vibration rolled through the deck, not from engines but from space itself. The old man's head snapped toward the corridor. They're here. Juno's voice crackled over my comm. Captain, we've got inbound. 3 signatures, no transponders, no drive trail. They just appeared. My gut clenched. Black ships, she confirmed. And they're not circling, they're docking. I turned back to the man. How many ways out of here? 1, he said, and they'll be waiting for you in it. Then we don't go out, I said, we go through. He stared at me for a heartbeat, then reached under his coat and pulled out a small sphere, matte gray with faint lines etched across its surface. You ever seen a grav collapse mine? Fleet doesn't issue those anymore, I said, because they work too well, he replied, pressing it into my hand. Zet it for detonation, and this section of space folds in on itself for about 3 seconds, long enough to break a hull into molecules, or if you're fast, to slip past something that shouldn't be there. I didn't have time to ask how he got 1. The vibrations grew stronger, like a slow heartbeat echoing through the station's bones. Garrick was already moving toward Crane, checking the restraints. If we're making a run for it, I want him locked down. Crane didn't resist, but his gaze followed me as I turned toward the docking bay. They'll let you go, he said, because they want you to carry me further. I didn't answer. We moved fast. The old man took point, leading us through maintenance shafts that bypassed the main corridors. Juno covered the rear, her eyes darting to every shadow. The station's groans grew louder with each passing second. When we reached the bay, I saw them. 3 black figures stepping off a dock ship, their movements smooth and deliberate, no weapons visible, but every instinct I had screamed they didn't need them. The old man tossed me a glance. On your mark, I thumbed him the mines activator and set it to 10 seconds. Go. We broke from cover, sprinting for the Mistral. The figures didn't move to stop. Us just watched. That was worse. The mines' timer hit 0 just as we cleared the bay. There was no explosion, no flash, just a sickening bend in the air, like reality itself was twisting. The black figures flickered, their shapes warping and collapsing in on themselves before vanishing entirely. Juno slammed the Mistral's hatch, and Garrick threw the locks. Straps, I ordered. This is going to be rough. The old man didn't board with us. He just stood at the edge of the bay, watching. If you make it out, he called, burn a path so wide they can't follow. And then we were gone. Juno pushed the engines harder than I thought the Mistral could take. The station fell away behind us, swallowed by the dark. For a brief, fragile moment, it was just us and the void. Then Cone spoke from the medbay. They'll come again. No doubt, I said. They'll come for you. He continued, because you're the piece they need to move next. I leaned in the doorway, meeting his black stare. Maybe, but I'm not playing your game. You already are, he said. The moment you stepped through the first gate, you were theirs. I didn't let him see it, but those words landed like a blade in my gut, because in the back of my mind, I'd been wondering the same thing since the wreck. Field. Juno's voice broke the moment. We've got a problem. FTL's unstable. That mine did something to the drive core. How bad? I asked. Bad enough that if we push it, we might tear ourselves apart. I stepped into the cockpit, eyes scanning the readouts. The drive was fluctuating between stable and critical, like it couldn't decide whether to keep running or quit entirely. We've got 2 options, Juno said. We limp to the nearest safe port, which means putting into fleet space, or we risk the conquered border and pray they're still pissed off enough to leave us alone. Fleet space means handing Crane to Havel, Garrick said from behind us, and you know what she'll do. Strap him to a lab table until she figures out how to use him. Conquered space means they'll put a hole in us on site, Juno countered, or Draven said we head somewhere neither side wants to go. I turned to him. Where's that? He hesitated. There's a system in the outer deep. No fleet, no conquered, no trade routes. It's got 1 habitable moon, barely. Used to be a research outpost before the first expansion, then they pulled out and sealed the records. Nobody goes there. Why not? I asked, because he said slowly, the ones who didn't come back. Silence settled over the cockpit. Crane's voice drifted in from the medbay, smooth and certain. That's where you'll find the truth. I didn't like the sound of that, which Probably meant he was right. I looked at Juno. Set a course for the outer deep, keep it sublight until the core stabilizes, and make sure we're dark the whole way, she nodded, already plotting the vector. As the Mistral swung toward the black stretch of space that was the outer deep, I caught my reflection in the viewport. My eyes looked older, harder, like I'd been carrying a weight that had settled deep into my bones, and in the reflection, for just a second, I thought I saw a faint black ring around my irises. When I blinked, it was gone. The Mistral drifted in the darkness of the outer deep like a leaf in an endless ocean. No transponder, no beacon, no comm. Just the slow pulse of the engines at sublight, the steady hum of life support, and the sound of my own thoughts gnawing at the back of my skull. It had been 29 days since we'd left Soren's reach, 29 days without seeing another ship, another station, another living soul outside this crew. You'd think isolation would make me restless. Instead, it made me listen. Because the silence out here wasn't empty. Sometimes when I was in my bunk, with my eyes closed, I'd hear the faintest whisper, like someone talking to me from the other side of a door. Not words, just shapes, suggestions, thoughts that weren't mine slipping into the edges of my mind. Crane never said much anymore. He sat in the medbay, still restrained, eyes closed most of the time. But I knew he wasn't sleeping, and I knew he could hear the same whispers I did. On the 31st day, the moon appeared on the scope. It hung in the black like a bruise, its surface a mix of rocky plains and streaks of white ice. No atmosphere to speak of, no signs of life, at least not the kind we'd recognize. But the old fleet records were clear. There had been a research outpost here once, long before my time, and then it had gone dark. We made orbit. The outpost was visible from above. Cluster of domes and spires half buried in the rock, connected by tunnels like veins. Some of the structures were collapsed, others still standing, but nothing moved. No power, no heat. Juno looked at me from the pilot's chair. We're really doing this. We've come too far not to, I said. Garrick loaded his rifle without a word. Draven packed what scanners still worked. We left Crane aboard under heavy lock, and Garrick's jury-rigged security measures. I didn't trust leaving him unattended, but I trusted bringing him down there even less. The air in the outpost was stale, cold. Dust floated in the low gravity, disturbed by our steps. Our helmet lights cut through the gloom, revealing walls covered in old fleet markings, faded and peeling. This place hasn't been touched in decades, Draven said, scanning a corridor, but there's something residual. M-trace, low frequency, like the whole place is holding a charge. We moved deeper. The first few domes were empty, storage, barracks, control rooms stripped bare. Then we found the lab. It was intact, sealed behind a bulkhead that took all three of us to force open. Inside, the air was heavier, stale but untouched. Consoles lined the walls, their screens dark but unbroken, and in the center of the room was a glass cylinder big enough to hold a person. The glass was cracked. Whatever had been inside was gone. Draven moved to the nearest console, pulling out a portable power cell. The screen flickered to life, showing static before a fleet logo appeared. Then a series of files. Most were corrupted, but one opened, a log entry video feed from a man in a fleet research uniform. His eyes were tired, his voice low. If you're seeing this, it means we Didn't contain it. He paused, glancing. Off-green. The entity we recovered, it's not a life form in the way we understand. It's a network, a field. It doesn't need a body, it just uses one, and once you're part of it, you never really leave. He leaned closer. We thought we could study it. We were wrong. It studied us, learned us, and now it knows how to make more of itself. There was a sound in the background. Metal twisting like the hull of a ship. Under pressure. The man's eyes widened. They're here. He reached forward as if to shut off the recorder, but the feed cut out before his hand reached it. Juno's voice came over comms from the Mistral. Captain, you'd better get back up here. My stomach tightened. What is it? Can's awake, she said, and he's talking to someone. We moved fast, retracing our steps through the outpost, dust kicking up behind us. By the time we reached the shuttle and lifted off, I could see it down on the moon's surface. Shadows moving across the ice, not human, not conquered. Smooth black shapes sliding like ink over stone. When we docked with the Mistral, the medbay door was open. The restraints were on the floor, cut cleaned through. Crane stood in the center of the room, hands at his sides, eyes black and calm. They know you're here, he said. I raised my weapon. Who, you already? No, he stepped toward me, slow, deliberate. You went looking for answers. You found them. Now you're part of them. Garrick moved between us, rifle up. Not if I put a round through your head. Crane didn't even look at him. Killing me won't change what's already happened. And I knew he was right, because in the corner of my vision, I caught movement. Just for a second, a shimmer in the air, like heat over pavement. And then it was gone. Juno's voice came from the cockpit. Captain, we've got incoming, 6 ships. No drive trails, just here. I didn't have to ask what color they were. They're not here for him, Crane said. They're here for you. Something in me broke then, not with fear but with clarity. I remembered the curator's words back in the black chamber. You are the board. And maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a piece. They'd moved into position, but pieces could still knock over other pieces. I looked at Juno. Get us into orbit, keep the core hot. If they follow us, I want them close. Close, she said, eyes narrowing. You planning something? Yeah, I said, I'm planning to take some of them with us. Draven's eyes widened. You're talking about overloading the drive. I'm talking about folding this whole patch of space in on itself, I said, same as that mine did at Soren's. Reach, only bigger. Garrick's jaw tightened. That'll kill us maybe, I said, but if it buys Earth time to see what's coming, it's worth it. Crane smiled faintly. You think destroying the board will end the game? It won't, maybe not, I said, but it might flip the table. The ships were closing in now, their sleek black shapes cutting through the dark like blades. No weapons ports, no visible engines, just inevitability bearing down on us. I took the pilot's chair. Strap in. Juno glanced at me. You're really doing this? I'm really doing this. I fed power into the core, watching the readings climb. The hull began to tremble, a deep vibration running through every bolt and seam. The ships outside tightened their formation, hemming us in. Cronin stood in the doorway, calm, almost serene. When the game restarts, he said, you'll see us again. The core hit critical. I slammed the release. The world folded. Light bent, space twisted, and for 3 heartbeats there was nothing but black. When my vision cleared, I was floating Not in the Mistral, not anywhere I recognized, just floating. And in the distance shapes moved, tall, black and watching. One of them stepped closer and I heard the voice in my head, well played.